Thank you for watching or listening to this candidate forum. This is one of several conversations among candidates running for a seat on the WBAI local station board. My name is Kate Doran, and I am a volunteer with the League of Women Voters. I will be your host and moderator this afternoon. WBAI is a listener-sponsored radio station, one of the 5 stations of the Pacifica network, the country's first and only independent national radio network. The views expressed during this program are those of the candidates, not of WBAI. All viable candidates have been invited to participate in these discussions. Our format today is that after each candidate introduces themselves, I will put one question to each candidate, and they will have 2 minutes to answer that question. Each of the other candidates will have 1 minute to follow up, comment, or rebut the answer. At the end of the questioning period, the candidates will have an opportunity for a closing statement to make the case why you should vote for them. The order of the candidates is from the left to the right, and they will introduce themselves, and they have 30 seconds each to do so.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Katherine O'Sullivan. I am running as a candidate for the Listeners Board. I am an immigrant first, and I'm also a citizen. I got my citizenship as soon as I was eligible because exercising my vote is very important to me. I am running as a candidate because I value independent voices, and BAI has always been an independent voice, and I think it's very important that it remains independent. So any sort of partnerships or takeovers or alliances, I would be very wary of, because as we have seen more than once, it is very difficult to maintain a power structure in a partnership. So I hope you'll vote for me.
Hi, my name is John Brinkley, and I'm running for the local station board with the Justice and Unity Coalition. I've been listening to WBI since the mid-70s, when a good friend of mine, Pepsi Charles, had the program Nuances. I've been involved with the local station board since 2010. I was elected chair and re-elected unanimously. I feel that BII plays a vital role for our community. It allows community activists who come onto the air and express what they're doing and how it impacts our community. We need these diverse voices, and they're not really able to get onto the other public radio stations, and surely not on the commercial stations. So I appreciate BAI. I've worked in terms of developing a sustainability plan previously when I was on the board, and have done a number of other fundraising activities, successful fundraising activities. So re-elect myself and the other members of the Justice and Unity Coalition.
Thank you. My name is Jim Dingemen. I am running as a listener candidate. I'm currently a member of the local station board. I am currently also the chair of the National Programming Committee of Pacifica. In the past, I had been on the local advisory board, the Program Council in the 90s, and was the chair of the WBI Community Advisory Board for several years. I'm running because I think we need to renovate and revolutionize WBI and Pacifica in this new situation we're in as Americans with neo-fascism on the march. Please vote for the ACE Indy slate, which is committed to no swap, no sale, no lease of WBAI. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you all.
Yes, good afternoon all. My name is James Bryan. I'm running for a a seat on the WBAI local station board as a listener candidate. I've been a long time listener of the station, approaching 40 years, if your eyes can believe it. And during that time, I've certainly heard of turmoil and woes, but certainly we've reached this time where we have this voter participation, and we need to basically make sure that the listeners are properly informed and not scared and given really scurrilous kind of propaganda to try and dissuade their support for particular policies. So I want everybody to consider voting for me, James Bryan, and the rest of my Justice and Unity slate. So I am running on the Justice and Unity slate, and I'm looking for your support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we will move into the questioning, and I believe all the candidates are familiar with the format. 2 minutes to answer one of the questions which you've all seen in advance, and then the other candidates will have an opportunity, a 1-minute opportunity to respond. So, Ms. O'Sullivan, the first question goes to you. This is a question about programming. Do you think that WBAI's policies and procedures for making programming decisions and for program evaluation are working in a fair, collaborative, and respectful manner? And if you think they are, describe what seems to work well to you, and if not, what policies and or procedures would you propose that might lead to better meeting the standards?
Thank you for that question. I am not familiar with all the very intimate details of how programs are considered and scheduled and terminated. I do know that one program where I have had the opportunity to speak for Inwood anti-rezoning was Michael Haston's show, and that was terminated pretty abruptly, so I'm not sure why. I think he's been reinstated. In fact, I know he has, and that's a good thing. We need to allow diverse and independent voices be heard. So I would be very keen to make sure that there is some watertight mechanism where programs are evaluated on their merits, not just the numbers in the ratings. That is important, but also what voices are being heard, what other venues are available to them. And I think that there should be some sort of standard way of evaluating a program and encouraging what is good in the program, discouraging what is bad, and then making decisions accordingly in a very open manner. I don't think there should be a lot of closed-door assassinations of programs. And I just want to take this opportunity because I have to be in Inwood for an anti-rezoning meeting, so I'm not going to be able to be here for my closing statement, but I want to say thank you for this opportunity to be here.
Mr. Brinkley?
Oh, sure.
You have 1 minute to comment, rebut, or respond as you like.
Sure. The question was, do you think programming is being done in a fair and collaborative and respectful manner?
Right.
And I would say out of the three of them, no. I know that there have been, as my colleague has said, a number of programs that have been abruptly taken off the air. My understanding is that the producer of those programs was really not informed in a timely manner. That's not respectful. A number of other programs have been moved to other time slots. I think that we do need to have a permanent program director right now. We have an interim program director, and I think that collaboration and input, because programming is the backbone of BAI. That's why people turn on the radio station. So if that isn't our strongest point, then we need to make some adjustments.
Yes, I'd like to comment. The Pacifica National Board has had a policy since 2017 to have evaluation in place of all shows. That has not been implemented throughout the system. The problem is that you have shows that have not been fairly evaluated for years. And so, in my mind, shows that after 10 years only have a couple hundred people listening, well, what do? Do we keep them on the air, or do we allow someone who's younger and fresher to come on the air and try to do something different? I personally prefer the latter solution. I think that the whole system is unfair because there's never been an evaluation system set up for the past 15 years that can be viewed as fair, and that goes through all the factions who've controlled the station. So I think that that's a fair comment. We have to evaluate shows fairly, but at the same time we have to decide whether shows should stay on if they only have a couple hundred people as opposed to 2,000 to 3,000. I think that one has to make a distinction. Mediocrity should not be reinforced and valorized.
Thank you. Mr. Bryan?
Yes, yes, Ms. Sullivan. Okay, your response to the question, are you, my paraphrase, are you satisfied with the process of evaluating and determining the programming on the air? I too have a problem with it. I think we're unanimous in that, but it's always on the approach. We have had particular members of the current majority on the board that have supported things like Arbitron ratings without any conditions, which are just really outrageous tools to be used on a community station. They're for monopolist media organizations. So we need a fair process. We had a union. We need to restore a union shop at WBAI. Speaking of anti-fascist, that we can't even have that is outrageous. So yes, we need a fair process.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question, which will go to Mr. Brinkley. This one has to do with fundraising. Should one of the roles of the local station board be amplifying fundraising? If not, why not? If yes, what is your fundraising strategy or approach? You have 2 minutes.
Yes, I think that one of the roles of the board is to do fundraising. And while I was on the board, what we did, we developed a sustainability plan. At that time, it seems like every other year, BI is in mortal danger of either losing its transmission or going under because it has an exorbitant bill that it needs to pay. And so one thing that I did, working collaboratively with my Justice and Unity colleagues, was to establish a call-in center. I worked with a local union. We were able to go and call previous members, current members, let them know that we are in danger of losing access to our transmitter, which means we'll be off the air. And we raised a substantial amount of money. I think that board members, although there's a lot of things that they need to deal with, but fundraising should be one of the prime things. And working collaboratively, we can come up with good ideas. We already have a plan, and we can revisit that plan, update that plan, and implement that plan. I think it's an easy thing to ask the board to do. But one other thing I would like to mention is that, and I know my friend over here has a different perspective, but one way of paying our daily bills is through collaboration. We can work with a local a station that is publicly financed and I'll talk a little more about this later. But right now, let's say there are methods where we can reduce the on-air fundraising and really have a solid base of financial support.
Mr. Dingemen, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, first of all, in the bylaws, it states that the local board members are to assist in fundraising activities. And unlike some people who talk the walk, I walk the walk. I've been involved in fundraising for the station practically for the past 10 years. Right now I'm involved in trying to raise money to pay for equipment. And so I do think it's the responsibility of the board members to do this. John refers to the different plans that were put forth by board members in the past. I think all those plans are deserve merit and should be implemented. He also refers to a call center, which I participated in, and afterwards I helped with others to basically resolve 1,000 premium problems. So I think that that's important. In terms of what John suggested to affiliate with another TV entity, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, I'm totally opposed to that because I just refer to people to the fact that that would be putting us into a corporation, Time Warner, and that particular entity decided to fight against the First Amendment rights in the Dee Dee Halleck versus Manhattan Neighborhood Network case, and they gained the support of most of the conservative Supreme Court justices. So if people want to back that, that's fine. I don't.
Thank you. Mr. Bryan?
Yes, so absolutely fundraising has to be a central part of our activities. Just some of us through our affiliations and others through our sweat equity and so forth. That should be, I believe that's a no-brainer. As far as other alternative means of getting revenue and support, I absolutely support the idea of honestly conversing on the matter of collaborating with like community broadcasters. I mean, we hear the propaganda about anti-fascists. Let's talk about fascism. We are sitting here collaborating in a community franchise that's very much identical to Manhattan Neighborhood Network. They're all under attack. When that kind of scurrilous language is thrown around, it allows for the fascists, for the reactionaries in Washington to move on stations on entities like Manhattan Neighborhood Network and potentially others. So I think that kind of thing really needs to be stopped. We can have an honest dialogue.
Thank you. All right. The next question.
Don't I get a little response?
Rebuttal.
Yes. Yes, I will allow that. Yes.
Okay. All right. My good friend Jim Dingemen referred to the partnership, and he's totally against it. But in a partnership, you have to realize that Manhattan Neighborhood Network is a publicly funded. It is just like C-SPAN and BCAT and others. They receive fees from cable companies. They're not owned by these cable companies. And in any agreement that we have, it's a negotiated agreement. It's not something that they will demand and we just have to take. We negotiate the agreement. And thirdly, it allows us to take care of our weekly bills, our daily bills. It allows us to get training, just like Jim was saying. Some of our producers could use training, upgrading of their skills to be more effective. It allows us to get onto TV, accessing millions of additional people. And I think we at least need to consider. The ACE group came up with a $3.2 million debt that we have to deal with. So we need to look at everything.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bryan, the next question goes to you. This relates to underrepresented communities. Please define for us an underrepresented community and how you will reach out to the underrepresented communities as a member of the local station board. How do you plan to work to see that WBAI airways better reflect our underrepresented communities?
Wow, that's I appreciate that question. I an underrepresented community. I mean, I just from a visual standpoint, I suppose I would identify with a particular group, but about a year ago, I actually befell an illness that actually has me currently on disability, and on particular days I need assistance to walk properly and so forth, and it's become just something that I thought about as a, I think, principled person to make sure disabled people are well taken care of, and it's become front and center to me. So there used to be a programming on WBAI dealing with disability issues. The meetings used to conform to the Americans with Disability Act. The current majority seems totally indifferent to such legislation. So I can see a group like disabled people who many times go unnoticed because people don't necessarily know visually, needs to certainly be represented, and we need to have a broad mindfulness of making sure that broad community interests are addressed on here.
All right. I consider unrepresented communities to be basically, we have a signal that reaches out to 17 million people. If you have shows that only have 200 to 300 people listening to them per hour, which is what we sort of revealed, I totally reject the idea that the Nielsen ratings are sort of to be thrown out the window. Then, of course, we are underrepresented in a 17 million people metro market. I think we're very siloized in the way we perceive things. And we're not trying to figure out how we have a mass effect. So, for example, I feel that we do not reach out to the Asian American community in the city. We don't reach out to the Middle Eastern American community. And one of the things I'd like to see is us take teams out to the community boards of New York City, work with them for a couple of months, and actually report and ask them what kind of stories affect them, and bring that back into the station to revitalize the kind of local news coverage we need.
Thank you. Mr. Brinkley, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I think that we need to approach it in a way that allows underrepresented communities to contact the station. I think one thing that is missing is outreach. I remember previously Bernard White used to go out to the West Indian Day Parade. He used to have a site there. People would come. He would be able to bring them on the air. I think we need to do outreach. We need to go into the community. We need an open way where they can contact and say we have issues. They need to be vetted, and then either they personally or a producer needs to provide their information on the air. So I think it's a way of building an audience, and it's also a way of serving the community by doing that kind of outreach.
Mr. Bryan, would you like to respond to either of those?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to speak to a couple of points from Mr. Dingemen. First, I have a passion to make sure that underserved people that cannot get the current WBAI signal, the current management has been just woefully lax in just protecting the broadcast signal of the station, and many people simply can't get it because of interference. I'll just make a general appeal. I'm just interested if anybody has information on interference. You can go to, you can email to, you can go to justiceunity.org and leave a post there. And just on the other matter, we really need to stop the idea that that particular interests will determine what's useful on the air. I mean, I just want to reiterate a really respectful process to evaluate on their programming.
Thank you. Mr. Dingemen,
Mm-hmm.
this will be, I guess, our last question. This is about journalism. What is your understanding of independent journalism? Do you think rules around independent journalism require the board to remain out of editorial decisions around news reporting? Why or why not?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I wanted to first say that in terms of cooperating with the other community broadcast TV stations, I've always been in favor of that. I just don't want us to be dominated by it. And I should add that underneath all this is the suspicion that what's really involved here is to get control of a $50 million asset, which is what WBAI is all about. So that's what most people in the country feel is what's really going on. Now, independent journalism is very important. All the news stations need robust news departments. They don't have them the way they used to. The only station that really does is KPFA. Why? Because they're the most fiscally stable station in the whole system. So we have to think about what is the most important thing to develop listener sponsorship is audience. We have to boost our audience 2 to 3 times in order to financially survive. And that's a tough task. Now, independent journalism to me means that people are using and reflecting on reality while inspiring self-reflection and critical thinking. I think we try to do that. This is different than people making commentaries or essentially doing loudspeaker radio, because one of the problems that have occurred, why this question even comes into play, is that a show in California put on, in an unquestioned fashion, a neo-Nazi defender, and that's what caused, in part, this kind of issue to come on. And I think that people should be exposed to those ideas, and the mission statement says that we should have people understand the causes of conflict, but on the other hand, you don't allow somebody to sort of to make a comment like that and then not be queried or critiqued. So ideas are important to be expressed, and I think we need to reinforce every news department in every station in order to survive and thrive.
Thank you. Mr. Brinkley, would you like to comment?
I sure would. One thing that my good friend Jim Dingemen said was that we don't want to be dominated by a partnership with M&N. We have lawyers who can write an agreement that will not allow us to be dominated. There are benefits to being partnering with an organization like M&N. They are not the enemy. They are a publicly funded entity. They will allow us to have training. They will allow us to deal with our daily bills and so on. Also, one thing that I would like to say in response to the question itself is that should board members be involved with the independence of the presentation. We have a number of board members who have backgrounds in journalism, and they could be consulting. They would not be able to veto, but they would provide input and assistance. But ultimately, it is the producer who determines what goes out over the air.
Thank you, Mr. Brinkley. Mr. Bryan?
Yes. Yes. So I mean, WBAI, as long as I've been listening, nearly 40 years, has been in the vanguard of groundbreaking research and on the ground journalism, and that's something that's that really needs to be funded, and that's going to take funds and really needs to be well supported. I certainly am not interested in from my station board seat in getting involved with the intricacies of on-air journalism and reportage. That's not my interest. But just a point on this notion of a discussion to collaborate with other entities. It's just outrageous that this kind of language is going on about domination and takeover. And that's stuff from the Trump White House and the Trump FCC and the Trump and the Republican Senate that supports him. You really need to get off of that side of the politics, that reactionary politics, Mr. Dingemen. I'm speaking to you personally. That's really out of bounds. We cannot have respectful discussion of issues that way.
I'd like to respond.
I'll allow that 1 minute.
It is not. I did not initiate the lawsuit against Dee Dee Halleck and Papalito Melendez. That was initiated by Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and when they won the lawsuit down at Supreme Court, they had the support of Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch, Alito, Kavanaugh, Thomas, etc. So I think that sort of speaks for itself. Now, the issue of the Public Service Operating Agreement, the $3+ million that's owed, this problem's been existing in WBAI for many years. This just didn't just come out of the blue. And one thing that's not really clear with people talking about they're going to take the expenses, well, that debt is something that is not allowed by the FCC to be taken. So the $3.7 million, if we went over to Manhattan Neighborhood Network, the rest of the system would be stuck with a $3.5 million bill, and they're not going to do that. So that's why this is a ridiculous argument to make about this.
Thank you, Mr. Dingemen. All right. We've finished the question and answer portion of this forum, and now we move on to the closing section where each candidate will have a minute to make a closing statement and focus on why BAI members should vote for you, please. So, Mr. Brinkley, you're going to begin?
Yes. Why they should vote for me? I've been on the board. I know how to work with the board members, even though when I was chair of the board, our good friends at the ACE Independence boycotted the board. They didn't come to a meetings. We weren't able to get a quorum. We weren't able to get a lot of things done. They've been doing that for the last 8 months when I was chair of the board, and they also have done it consistently currently. There's a lot of information that is out there. I've been a supporter of BAI since the 70s. I have a master's degree, a bachelor's degree. I've worked in a variety of positions, gaining skills in terms of analytical skills, programming, project management skills, community outreach, and I'm ready, able to work with anyone on the board and to be clear, sensible decisions. We have a $3.2 million debt that was brought on by the ACE crew that we need to deal with, and I'm prepared to do different fundraising activities in order to deal with that debt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brinkley. Mr. Dingemen,
Yes.
you have a minute.
Yes, my name is Jim Dingemen. I ask you for your support for myself in the election and also the independent ACE candidacy that decides to want to not have leasing, swapping, or sales. I'd like to refute some of the things, and John I have great admiration for, but the debt was not brought on by ACE and Indy. We would have been sold. And I should add that the Justice and Unity people at the national level decided to vote and were prevented by the majority to not have audited financial reports, which would have cost us the foundation's nonprofit status in the state of California. So people should research this and make up their own minds. We have to revolutionize what's going on at BAI. We have to increase our audience several times, and then I think we can have a positive way, because I think the lack of money drives us nuts. And if we didn't have these problems going on, we would be concentrating on other issues that are more important, like defeating the fascism we are facing as Americans today.
Thank you. Mr. Bryan.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is James Bryan, and I'm running for the as a listener candidate on WBAI Station Board, just to repeat. And I want you to consider voting for me and all of my Justice and Unity slate comrades. And one thing that I really want to start thinking about is simplifying the notion of how we administer the station and the governance of the station. We should really deal with particular principles. I, for one, besides the specifics, find it essential that we partner with other progressive media. We really do not benefit anyone having these kind of charged kind of discussions about the intentions of potential partners. We can have discussions. That's something that does not happen at the meetings currently. That what you have is at every moment that scurrilous charges are put against particular ideas, and there's no open discussion. We need to have that. Ideas like having a union in WBAI for even the non-paid producers must be essential. We need to reform election matters as well. We have an unlimited spending on slick campaign material in this campaign that can really twist the truth, and we need to get very simplified and regulated in our elections and affairs.
Thank you.
So please vote for me, James Bryan, and the rest of Justice and Unity slate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We hope you've appreciated this conversation. Please visit the WBAI website to watch or listen to the other candidate conversations which are available to you. The views expressed during this program are those of the candidates, not WBAI. Ballots will be sent to all WBAI members on August 15th and need to be returned by October 15th. Please visit elections.pacifica.org for more information on the WBAI election. Thank you.